Sure.
Any test fee that you're running.
I'll get started tonight for the Planning Commission. It is January 23rd. And so our first topic of conversation is the late ad. And Vince from Whitefoot here, so I'll let you fill in any technical details I missed. But we had an attempted hacking started Wednesday of last week. That's why the email went down. That's why we've been jumping through hoops. Well, currently still jumping through hoops. Our system was not taken over. We have lost some data that we will be re-entering, if not been ransomed. My understanding is that we believe it was a random attack stemming out of Russia. But again, they were not able to get control of our system, and we will have to re-enter, going back to about Wednesday, court records and some financials. But other than that, we are simply having to restore, which is taking a lot of time. For instance, body cameras are still super slow, and we'll talk to Vince afterwards about an option to speed that up with the police chief. But that's kind of where we are. Is there anything you'd like to add, or is that fairly accurate?
That's very accurate. It's been, we were fortunate. The software that we've got, that you all put on the system, actually called the bad actor and stopped it before it got farther than what it did. They actually gave us some kudos for having it set up the way that you guys have allowed it to be set up to get it to stop. And the biggest issue we have right now is the video camera. It's about 13 terabytes of information, and it's over at the airport. So we had it over there because we can isolate it over there. We don't want that stuff to work, but it is slow. One of the options that we talked about, was we'll probably take the device over there, copy it over there, bring it over here, so it's faster and it's not going on that little 100 meg link, right? That we're having to share right now with the email system, and that's why the email system's a little slow. We cranked it up over there for off the backup, right? So it's actually running out there, and we're slowly transferring it back to its original location. So, yes, we're very fortunate.
So, but that's where we are. We're still working on it, but that's why you've had email glitches and that sort of thing the last several days.
Can we send them a response in Ukrainian?
Yes, probably.
It'll land real well, I'm sure.
Did they ask for any money? No, that's good
As Vince was saying, they weren't able to get far enough along
to do that.
to do that.
Okay, good.
All right. Moving on, fine-free library results. So what was that, 6 months ago? We had an experiment to go fine-free. And so Natalie's going to present on that with the data.
Yep, so that was July 1st through December 31st. Did everybody hear me with the math? We've lost 2/3 of our staff in the last 2.5 weeks to COVID. So.
Oh, wow.
Trying to, protecting you guys, actually. So, these are the results. So I had the first comparison's a little different in time period because I had a year's worth of data versus just the 6 months from this, but the percentage is the important part. So, you know, we checked the data for a year before we started the experiment, and we had a 5.4% late turn-in. And then during that 6 months of the fine-free period, we only increased by 1.5%. And a lot of that was probably just confusion at the beginning because, you know, you can tell people that we're fine-free, you still have to turn things in, but it took them a little bit to understand that. Once we got past that learning curve, we really didn't see a big change. The only thing, the people, you know, it's like for the most part, the people who turned their books in on time still turned in their books on time, which was as predicted, and the people who don't didn't. What we did find is the people who don't were a little later than usual. So if we went for this full time, if we, you know, made this permanent, there's a couple of things that we would do. While we wouldn't have late fees on general checkout, we probably still would want late fees on our park passes, which we did keep in place for this because so few park passes, such high demand, we need to keep them moving. We would probably also want to keep late fees on our new releases. So the shelf of books, it's just inside the library doors. It has the brand new adult fiction. new adult nonfiction. That's where we saw the most issues. Really, children's books pretty much came back in on time. Teen books came back in on time. We would want, right now our system's set up, if a book is overdue for 3 months, that's when it rolls over into lost and automatically charges the account the cost of the book and a processing fee. And if we went fine free, just to kind of nudge those people or hold on to them a little too long, we'd want that to roll over probably at 28 days. That would be, 28 days is our usual checkout period, so that would be essentially a second checkout period, and then it would roll over into loss. So that would be our recommendation. Feedback was really good from the community with most people, you know, all those harried parents who come in and they're like, I forgot this book, it's a week late, I'm so sorry. And then we got to tell them we're fine free and they're super excited. So I kind of fostered a lot of community goodwill because people felt like we were on their side, which we are, but you know, sometimes we have to charge late fees. But it was nice to not have to nitpick over the little things. And then, you know, as far as the staff response, I talked to my staff, all of us checked somebody out who had fines that had deactivated their account who hadn't been in a while. So word of mouth did travel. And we got people in who, for whatever reason, weren't able to reactivate their cards, you know, some sort of financial hardship, who came back and checked out books for their kids. So from a staff perspective, we think this would be so helpful for those who are struggling in our community to get back to the library cards and to get books into the hands of kids, which, you know, is the important part of what we do, you know, fostering literacy, especially early literacy in the community. So, and we did also, you know, the case studies predicted that you will get an increase in library cards. We did see an uptick in library cards during this time period. If you look at, this isn't an apples to oranges thing. I took the exact financial information from July through December of 2021, compared it to July through December 2022. And while you can see we did collect fewer fines, but we got more non-resident cards coming in. So overall, we had more money in this period than we did the previous one. So it's not, you know, it's not like our fines are a big chunk of money anyways, but I think the goodwill that we receive from doing the fine-free period, we got people to come back to the library and renew their cards and get new cards. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Are you saying because of not having fines, we've increased the cards?
I can't say.
Because I'm sorry, that's what I thought you said. Sorry.
For sure, it's not like we've told everybody who came back, but we did have more cards.
But that could just be luck of the draw.
Could be, yes.
I don't want to miss the picture there, so.
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't really advertise this, right?
We didn't advertise this.
So I don't know that that's really a draw to no fines from that
But
perspective.
We did have people come in whose cards have been deactivated for a while, so I think there was a word of mouth.
It could
sort of
be.
advertising that happened. I mean, the point that can be taken from this, even if you don't know, you know, whether those people would have come in anyway, the amount of fines lost is so little that, you know, the normal ebb and flow of cards can make up for it.
So what do we do with the fine money? What does that go to fund?
It subsidizes library operations. When we budget it out, we have an estimate of the monies they'll take in for cards and fines.
So it's not like for special, okay.
And to Natalie's point, over the year, over the 6 months, it's $900, so less than $2,000 a year is the difference there. And then to your point, cards are up for whatever reason. But on the general library budget, it's a fairly small amount of money.
This is based on the 1 year versus the 6 month experiment, right?
Well, this one down here, I have
6
the
months.
exact numbers for the financials. I had a slightly less exact report for the checkout.
Okay.
That's why it's the 1 year versus the 6 month, and I did the percentages there, but these are the actual numbers of the fines and fees we collected for those 2 6 month periods.
Okay.
So in other words, the citizens of Collegedale will pay the additional money for this.
Question or a statement?
It's a statement, or maybe it is a question.
Um,
I mean, it's out of the city's budget.
Correct. It's out of the city's budget as part of the operations fund, the $1,800.
Which is funded by the citizens, right? I just don't know that we should give people
Well, it's not technically giving people money.
no, I'm not saying giving money, but it's more of you do something you've got a responsibility to do, and they're not doing it. And you're not, I guess, assessing the fine to the person who's at the library checking out the books. And then the citizens have to kind of reap that, if you will.
A large number of cards, once they go over that fine limit that deactivates the cards, it's not money that gets paid. It's the people who can pay it do. But, what we're trying to reach out to is the households where that is a hardship. And life happens, things happen, everybody turns in a book late sometimes, and so it's trying to make the punishment fit the crime, where their card is cut off forever with these late fines. And that's families and with children who never come back to the library. Whereas if we went fine-free, if the items didn't come back, it would deactivate their card, but they could reactivate that card by returning those items. So once the items are back in circulation, then we can have people using their cards again. As it's mainly, if you want to think of it this way, it's wanting to keep the library option open for children and families who may be experiencing financial hardship.
So in the 6-month period, how much of your staff's time is expended chasing these $900 in fines?
Well, we don't go after anybody with collections. We do send out letters. We actually
Sure.
mail a physical letter, old fashioned, I know.
But still, that's money. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's a stamp.
Yeah.
That you're having to spend.
And they just went up too, by the way.
Yeah, they sure did.
Was it 69 cents?
So, and it is, one of those things where you end up spending a lot of time at the desk with people fussing over fines and, you're talking about it, lines growing because people are, well, no, I'm pretty sure I turned that one in on time. Whereas it was much smoother operations, especially through the summer, which is our busiest time in July when we started this, when we didn't have to stop everything and handle fines, count out change, and, go run the transaction, write a receipt if they wanted it. It was very, very nice operationally to not have to stop everything to do that. And then you could just focus on checking books out to people and helping them with computer issues. I mean, we do a lot of stuff. Fines is probably the least important thing for me.
So would you say that by the time you consider staff time and cost of writing and mailing a letter and all, that $1,800 a year is probably a wash at best?
Probably.
Did you lose any books?
What's that?
Have you lost books?
We always have some that never come back, but we didn't have an increase.
If we can create some goodwill by going fine-free, helping families out, I'm all in favor of that. I think that's important.
I know you and Tanya both weren't on the commission when I gave my original pitch. This is a movement that's growing across the country to, because fines, the research backs it up. The fines don't actually work on most people. It's, if you want materials to come back, fines aren't actually the way to do it. Most people will bring things back on their own. Those who are late are late. Those who are on time are on time. And so, I did talk with my staff. You'll notice our recommendations to keep those fines on the new fiction books, because those people who want to avoid the possibility of fines can just avoid those if they want to. There's still plenty of stuff to read in the library, and we wouldn't have any fines on children's books, but that was the only spot where we saw some issues were some of those hot new bestsellers and keeping those moving. Some people kept those a little too long.
So can I ask another question? So what do we charge today? So Collegedale citizens is free. Outside Collegedale, what is the cost? And I know we do something special for retirees.
Yeah, so we've got four different options. So if you are not a senior citizen, there's a individual card, which is $60 a year. And then there's a family card where multiple people in the household can be on that card, and it gives you additional checkouts for $85 a year. And then the senior discount on both of those options is $50 and $65 respectively. We also have in the summer, we have a $10 card. It's very limited. It's only for 3 months. It's June through August. And it is 10 checkouts at a time.
So you know what I like for us to look at then? I mean, if,
Add a couple dollars and
no, I almost feel like, I mean, you can get more bang for your bucks if you reduce, I didn't remember it being $60 every year. I was thinking it was a one-time. It's been a long time since I've looked at the fees for the library, but I mean, could we look at the option to lowering that? I mean,
we can pull the total number of each type of card.
yeah, and I'm just wondering,
And
how much do we depend upon that truly from I mean, if you really want the public library to be good for the citizens, you have to look outside of Collegedale's way. And I was just I always question things. So don't get me wrong when I was questioning, is this worth? I don't feel like I'm not doing my due diligence if I don't question things. So is it an option that we could look at, and how much would it cost the city if maybe we reduce some of those library
total
cards?
number of cards.
Yep.
And put together what that cost per card, how that equates to the $1,800, and present that information to y'all.
Yeah, because I don't remember how big of a piece of that it is.
I think to a degree, I understand. I think going the no fee is good. I like your recommendation. I do think possibly, since we are looking at the community and we are taking care of our citizens, a majority of the people that come to the library are outside. A great deal of them are outside of our city that we use. Because when we first came on, that's one of my goals was when this was before your time, pushing so that we remember teachers that Ooltewah and the surrounding areas, because teachers have they have it tied anyway, because they end up spending quite a bit of their own money to take care of the needs and the resources they need for their students in the classroom. That hasn't changed in 30 years, okay? And because I know when I taught Hamilton County, a fourth of my salary went to my kids to keep, because furnishing everything I needed to do for them that the city would not supply. I think that if we look at maybe some of those families that are, like you said, having the hard times and maybe reducing it a little bit, or having a waiver of some sort if they can prove based upon their financial need at the time, that would help them. Because I'm more interested in getting the material out there. This library is a good resource, especially for the teachers in the area and the kids to come and get what they need, because the school libraries didn't have it all. Okay, we're more up to date than the schools are on the literature that's recommended for them to read and everything. I'm pro-children. I can tell you that right now. I always have been, always will be. And I understand I want to put the city at a fault, but at the same time, we're offering a community service. And I think we need to do that.
Information together and expand the conversation once we have those numbers in front of
Yeah.
us. Total budget, what is earned through fines, what's earned through membership cards, et cetera, and just expand the conversation if it's reasonable to reduce card prices, or if the
We
fine free is the right option, or
could do something like that and see, give it another 6 months, a year, whatever it takes. To me, 6 months is a short time to get information that you really need, that's valuable to get the flow. And like you said, I think word of mouth is the reason people are coming back a little bit. But and people do talk, especially the mamas. And see, it would help the library and then also benefit the city too.
Because what I
Not just
didn't,
in money, but the fact that we are community minded, and that's what we're wanting, is to be community minded. Take care of our own.
so what I didn't understand or hear is if we really want to help the people who can't afford it by lowering the fees together, you know, you don't isolate them that they cannot afford something, but it's affordable to everybody in the community.
We'll get that information together and give it to you in the conversation.
If you own a business in town, is that counted as a resident of Collegedale?
I'm so sorry, I can hear that.
If you own a business in town,
Mhm.
you can have a card free, correct?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct. And we do have the teachers can get a free card with a letter from their principal stating that they are currently on the roster for that year.
Okay. So moving on to item 3, this was asking each of the commissioners to give us some high-level thoughts on kind of their goals for the city over the next year or so. The stimulus of this was Commissioner Lamb reminding me about the workshops y'all used to do several years back. And unfortunately, I don't see a time we can cut out this month to do it, so this was as close as we could get to start the conversation. But I'd like to, I guess I'll just start on the end with Commissioner Sadler and work this way.
Okay. So you just want kind of high-level overview?
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you think we're doing well, and what areas would you like to see us do a little different?
I kind of just hit on a few areas to talk about, if that's okay. One thing I'm interested in is some more pavement for the city. I was going to ask if Tucker Road was on the schedule to get repaved anytime soon.
So Tucker Road, we are in discussions, we'll call it, with
Okay.
TDOT on the extent that they're going to repave. The plans right now only call, the original plans only call going to the hill. It's about halfway down. They've beat the road to death. Our intention is to not do any work on Tucker until they're done running heavy haul trucks on it, beating it to death. We've been worrying about this, Eric and I, before this phase of construction started, and expected it to be about as bad as it is until this phase is over.
Okay. Along those lines, I had also noticed on the county GIS that the new parts of Spalding and Tucker Road, along with the new Appison Pike and University Drive intersection, are not showing as in Collegedale. So is there any kind of update on that or what the plan is?
Once it's all turned over to us at the end of the project, we'll update GIS.
Okay, so technically right now, those are not in the city of Collegedale,
Not
or,
until construction's over and they're turned over to us.
okay,
They come to us. And there's also great questions that we've not found the answer to on the short section of roads that are not going to remain as public roads, but yet public right-of-way. Where that falls, can we just leave it as right-of-way, or do we have to file a revisionary plat to just call it public property? Which is just a technical conversation with myself about before the people would even think to ask.
okay. I also wanted to this year, possibly us discuss paying off our bond to eliminate the debt service expenditures, to maybe see in a meeting what all 5 of us think about that possibility. And then, speaking of IT services, that went up for bid. My personal stance on that right now is I'm interested in looking at if we could hire a full-time and part-time staff member instead of going a route of a contract, if that's something we could discuss, the benefits of having a staff member in the building. That way you're not having to wait for a service call to come, or if you really need somebody in the building immediately. That's something I'm interested in this year.
We did that prior to putting them up for bid.
You did what prior?
We had that conversation prior to putting the services up for bid. The in-house versus out-of-house possibility and getting the skill sets we need.
Was that in a commission meeting?
We've been in a workshop.
A workshop, okay. I'll get with you so I can figure out what the date that was. Oh, sorry.
I'll have to find it.
Okay,
It would have been September,
Mhm.
maybe. Yeah,
September.
September-ish,
Beginning, yeah.
fall. It would be
Okay.
fall, but I'll-
August, September.
okay. I'm also interested in the Small Cities Coalition. Is there an update on the increased election charges imposed by the Election Commission that we're facing?
So, yes and no. I'll kind of run through it. The Election Commission backed off and reduced the fees. They did not reduce them as far down as they
Okay.
did in the past. Unless the commission tells me otherwise, my thought is next year or not next year, year after, for our federal election, the Election Commission can pay to rent the space. Or we're not going to incur months of lost revenue in addition to their increased fines. Because we're giving them thousands and thousands of dollars in space usage and staff time, et cetera, cleaning, air conditioning and all. For them to come back and make us pay these exorbitant fees is a slap in the face. So unless the commission tells me otherwise as a consensus, that was going to be my conversation with them, or if they wanted to go back to the much more fair fine or fee structure, that's a conversation we could have.
Okay. I'm also interested in us getting a really good update on what the coalition is doing and evaluating our current program to see if its existence continue to be justified or not. If we could get some update or like,
We're going to go through legislation tonight. That's our current focus right now.
okay,
If there are other questions, let me know.
okay,
This time of year, the coalition is almost solely focused on legislation, legislative efforts. Especially with the expansion and caption bills, they're so dynamic and move so quick. That's our focus all the time until we get through legislation, what's passed, and lobbying for or against the things that are in the best interest of the citizens.
okay. And I'm also curious, like, how each city's utilizing it, because I noticed in the news that East Ridge is using a lobbyist, and they have been for 5 years, so that they were using somebody else for that kind of level. So I'm just kind of seeing where each city is using the coalition.
Did you notice who the lobbyist was?
I wrote down the name, but I don't know a lot about her, but I think she's had success for them.
That would be a conversation we should have.
Okay. And then the last thing I really jotted down for this meeting, and there'll be more things I want to talk about in the budget, but I'll try to keep it abbreviated, is the retention incentive. I really appreciate all the thought that's went into that. At this time, I don't feel like that direction is one that I agree with. I kind of just, for my colleagues, I made a handout that they could look at. We're just kind of looked at the figures about what that would do for like a 5-year and a 10-year. And I just thought maybe we could look at some other options before going all in on this one. Hold on, I'll hand out, please.
Thank you.
Fingers are cold and I can't get them apart. Just kind of did a map out of what our current handbook has and then with the new proposal and just a comparison. And on the back with just some points that, we could go towards this new proposal, or we could keep our current retention plan for this budget year while we're discussing other options for the future. Or we could design an annual incentive that gives non-management employees a higher percentage incentive than those that are making already higher management style salaries. Or what I'm personally fond of at this moment is us determining a flat rate annual amount per service year like Hamilton County and Chattanooga does.
You know what that is?
I think it's $75. 75. And I would believe, first year, because I think your first couple of years is when you're probably likely to lose someone. So treat everybody like you appreciate them from the start. But just something I wanted us to talk about, different options instead of
Um,
seeing one.
I appreciate the feedback. And was hoping for feedback when I sent this out to the commission. The onus of this conversation and where it got started was the difference between a year 2 employee and a year 10 employee. And I would be concerned that at $75 a year, we're in the same situation we're currently in. So if we went with the amount per year, it may be more than $75. You know what I mean? $750 on for 10 years of service is not a huge kick when some of our folks can go get a $3,000 raise to go to Hamilton County.
But this isn't really to do with salary. This is more of an annual thank you. If we have, the funds for such extravagant or annual bonus, we could just maybe put the money into adjusting our salaries instead.
This is to try to keep, the biggest problem we're having as far as turnover is Public Works and PD. Those are two career fields that nationally are having problems retaining employees that they just are. And we're losing people, to your point, in that 3 or 4 year range. And they're going to organizations that have a stepped pay system that is more representative of a decade of service. So that's where this idea started.
Uh-huh.
And that's the problem that we're trying to address.
Okay.
In my mind, it wasn't necessarily a thank you, though it is, but it was trying to. So 2 years ago, we opened up a new position in Public Works that was going to focus on pressure washing and painting. We've been completely staffed in Public Works less than a month over those 2 years. We lose someone about as quick as we get them. And that's what we're trying to address. Does that make sense?
It does, but it does feel like this was a little bit more skewed towards upper management instead of finding a way to make
Skewed in that.
like the extra 1.5%. Like maybe if we could eliminate that or look at another option and just, because to me, when you are a manager and you're getting an extra 1.5% on top of the years of service incentive, it's like you're more important to us. And you are very important to us, but our employees are equal human beings is kind of where I'm coming from on it.
That remained unchanged. I appreciate the feedback on it.
Okay.
That was already in there.
Okay. And
That's from prior years, right?
Correct. That was there. What we changed was the additional steps and the 200 to 400. But we left the manager bonus as.
And with the benefits, are key managers and city managers still getting, is it free healthcare instead of having to contribute? Is that just for the single employee or for the manager and their family?
It's family.
Okay, all right. That's all I have for this session.
Well, thank you. And let me know a good time to have that.
Okay.
One thing I was concerned about when I was looking at was Public Works. I think, I talked about that just a little bit. The incentive to keep our personnel. We invest money in training them, and they do have to leave, and we've had some hard times these last few things. I think in the past we've done a good job. Looking at it now, if things have changed, and I do think Public Works, we need to look at that and bringing up some type of reform or whatever. I am going to disagree with the question about the 1.5. I think, and I respect and I love and appreciate every one of our employees, okay? But I think when you're in a position of leadership, you take on more responsibility. You have more headaches, and you're the leader, okay? So I think to take away the 1.5 or whatever, I don't think that would be, to me, unless you can show me the paperwork and the numbers, for that part, I think they should be getting a little bit more. Over more in the sense that it's just extra, what's the word I'm looking for, that it's not realistic? No. But a reasonable, I think our leadership should maintain that, just because of the fact they've worked it, they've earned it. Okay, I've been in leadership before, and y'all put on a lot more than the average worker does. Okay, and I'm not downing the average worker. I've been an average worker before, and I've been on the top, and I kind of like my position where I'm at now because I'm no longer a lead teacher for Hamilton County. I like my little office and working with my students and drawing my retirement and getting another one on top of that. But I think in retrospect, everything that I've done as any other leader in a position would do, I think they earn it. And so I think we should take care of all of our employees because not everyone is equal, whether we'd like to say that, but I do think they should be compensated for what they've added to and contributed, And our goal is to advance and improve, and we need to bring in funds to cover that without having to up property taxes. Another thing that I'm concerned about is with our airport. I've been driving by, checking, looking at some of the things. I'm not into aviation. I'm not perfect, but as a citizen looking at it, it hasn't been kept up. It has made improvements in the last couple of months. I've noticed that and I've seen that. But we're a city that we're wanting to be a community. We pride ourselves on being above average. That's what we worked for. I know what it was 20 years ago when I moved here. And I know what the airport looked like 20 years ago when I moved here. And I think that we need to look at providing the things that needs to be there to bring it up to scale as what we should want it to be. And it is for the whole community. And it is, and to me, it is a asset. Okay. And I'd like to see more family-oriented things there. I'd like to see, number one, to have some paid people, employees. I think the volunteers are good, but I think they need to be paid. I mean, when you look at it, when I go out there, I have gone out there at times and it was closed and I didn't realize they were actually closed. I just thought they were somewhere they couldn't hear me ring the bell. I think closing at too early is ridiculous. We're at airport. We should be gearing towards people, like bringing them in, paying, getting the fuel cost and so forth. I know we are working on lowering the fuel costs, so in order to get people in here. But there's some repairs out there that I think we're going to have to look at seriously and bring up. I also think with Parks and Recreation, I'm working on some things with David Bartow. I have been behind the scenes a little bit working on things, and so I'm looking forward to, I'm going to miss working with y'all, working with Parks and Recreation, but I'll keep working with wherever y'all want me. I might be a thorn in your flesh at some times. I'm pretty sure you'll put me in my place if I'm out of sequence there. Because I think we got wonderful staff, and it just didn't come overnight. The commission has worked hard. Tim and Katie and other commissioners that were here before have worked hard to bring the city up to where it's at. Is it perfect? No. But we're striving to make it better, and that's what we need to look at. So I'd like to see some more inputs with Parks and Recreation. I've always wanted another building. We're looking at working on some of that. That got the old ambulance, got that going. Public Works, I'd like to see more there, some things, to help them so we keep our employees, if it's better insurance or whatever. I don't dispute that that with the management getting their insurance. I know even my husband, the leadership when he was Parks and Rec, I'm trying to say it, a representative Toyota. Okay. He didn't get, he had to pay for family. Okay, and he paid dearly. Well, I don't have a problem with us having to pay when we made before, if it's, within a certain frame that keep your insurance. That was a compensation for the fact that we don't pay you as much as you could be paid in another city. I mean, we pay middle range. When it first came on, it was low range. I'd like to see us all come up. That's what our strife is, to put us up there where we're a city that we do take care of our employees. Because if they're happy, we're happy because the community's happy. So that's something to look at. And I understand about the roads. There's no sense wasting $1 million on a road when you're going to turn around and replace it again. That's just common sense, okay, as a business person. Another thing, so the library, I said Public Works, the police department. I still want to meet the dogs, Jack. I haven't met the dogs yet. I've been told not to give them streets. I'm going to respect that. I just paid a $10,000 fee for my dog being operated on and everything, so I understand that fully. And but I think we should move forward, not dwell in the past. I think we should move forward and see what's there. I think Bridget's doing a wonderful job with our coalition, and I mean, she's going to answer towards that and why we started it, and she's done excellent in keeping us informed and keeping us up, because that's our goal. We are policy makers. We're legislative. We don't run the city. That's what we pay y'all for. but we watch dogs. Okay? And if we didn't think you were doing an outstanding job, you would definitely hear from us.
The coalition is an amazing asset.
It's a wonderful asset as it, working and I know she does her due diligence and she's represented our city well as any other. And so I think that it's a bonus and we need to keep it because we know what it was like when we didn't have it. Okay? And so she keeps us above and what we need to look at, things we need to go and say, no, we're not going to sponsor this. Because when Nashville does something, they're not looking out for the little cities. And so we need to stay on top of it. So we're very active in that. And that helps our city and helps the citizens of our cities. Okay. So that's all I'm going to say. I've said too much probably already, but I say a lot behind closed doors.
The legislators like to remind us they can take our privileges away from us being a city as well as grant us whatever. They like to remind us that every so often. Something I've been fighting for ever since I've been on the commissioner and we had our library is getting that library building under Collegedale ownership.
Conversation is happening
Yeah.
this week.
This week.
This week.
It needs to be.
I've spoken to Mayor Coppinger so many times over.
It was a burr under his saddle, and so the hope is with
I hope so,
the
because
administration.
it's ridiculous that we pay all the upkeep for it and they won't let us have the deed to it. Being on the airport advisory group has been a real eye-opener for me. I had no idea that there were so many needs out there. And I am concerned about how we can find money to help them get what they need in order to make money. And I think that's something we really need to discuss. I know that it's an enterprise and we don't use tax money for that. But I'd like to have some open discussion sometime about how we can go about helping them get what they need in order to make it a safe airport. That is my goal, is being safe. Once it's safe, then perhaps we can expand and have more activities out there. But it was a real eye opener for me. And I had been on here for, all these years and had no idea that it was in the shape that it was in.
This year's budget and last year's budget were the first ones in probably 16 years. Yes, that's significant. I say significant, $100,000 in capital maintenance.
Yeah.
How much would it, I'm sorry, because they do need a fuel truck.
So we're actually looking into a fuel trailer right now that would be utilized in addition to the self-help, which would be used when we had staff, so we wouldn't have to expand staffing. The fuel truck is not the huge financial burden. It is expanding staffing to use it when we don't have the fuel farm. So we're getting pricing now to see if that is an option functionally to go from there. I don't know if you've had those conversations or not. Ryan and I just talked about it last week.
Yeah,
To
okay.
try to, kind of as a stopgap, it's not a full fuel truck, but if someone landed during staffed hours, we could go up to them and fuel them, or if they landed after staffed hours, it could be self-help.
Well, I've talked to Michelle a little bit before meeting, and she's going to do a little research on some things that I had questions about that occurred before I came on commission. And so I want to share it with the advisory group when we meet in February again.
That was when we pulled all the bonds and did the expansion.
And got ourselves in a real mess. I've talked to you already on about a couple of these things. One is making sure we get our strategic plan update. And I know that they've started on that, but I want to see that was really to work and get that done, because I feel it's really important that with our growth that we need to understand what our strategic plan is for all of our departments and so forth. Also updating the land use plan with so many property coming in and so forth. I think we need to make sure that it is being utilized what is going to be best for the city. And
Opens
some,
up a can of worms in the Absent Pike corridor.
oh, yes, it does, doesn't it?
That 100 foot of asphalt is not necessarily meeting current market
Yeah.
demands.
One thing I think we need to look for as an employee, either part-time or full-time, is a grant writer. There is so much money out there that if we had someone that knew how to write grants properly, we could pull in money and we wouldn't have to worry about the airport or Parks and Rec or some of the equipment that we need for the police department and so forth. So I think that would be something that we really need to keep our eye open if we run across somebody or that we could look at either to contract with until we could get someone on board. But those are some of my main concerns that I have right now. And for the commissioners, the roundtable meets this week for the police department, and if you have any issues that you want me to take to the roundtable, would you email me that, your concerns or your questions? And I'll be happy to take them to the meeting. We meet, I believe, this Wednesday it's Wednesday afternoon we meet. Has there been anything from TML about a District 3 meeting? Because usually we have one long before now, even before the legislature
You know,
session.
Chris is still doing that?
No, it's, Stephanie, she's on District 3 now. And they had one in December,
No, they didn't.
they did not.
At least we didn't get notified of it if we did. So I was wondered about that. I appreciate what all of the employees have been doing and all of our key managers. I think that we have a good staff, and however we can support them as commissioners, I want to be a part of that. So,
Vice Mayor?
So my number one is greenways and parks. I know this last year we put some money into the greenway and finishing the sidewalk that goes from Integra down to Epsom Pike. I think that's going to be a hit. So people won't have to run across the road and potentially get hit. So I think that we can continue that process. And I think that we have to start looking at the bigger greenway projects where we're going to get more bang for our bucks. And you know which ones those are. It used to be a $1.8 million project. I was about to say, you keep going up $1 million a year.
remember, he's the $1 million man.
I know.
Two or three.
But I think we really got to look at, we do a lot on this side of the city, but the Edgemond Road, Homewood, Misty Valley, all those subdivisions, we're not doing a lot. And we got to get over there. And I think that either we need to find some donors to help us or a grant that Commissioner Lamb was speaking of. We've got to do something to get that going. And I know we're adding additional greenway space with Epsom Pike. It's just a given because the way that they rerouted that. And I think that's great. That
wasn't the connectivity concern that you're speaking.
Correct, that's correct. So, but if we could get the one going out through certain property, through the sewer easement, that would be great. And then again, parks, the pocket parks has always been we've never been able to get off the ground with it. There's land's hard to find. I'm not impressed with the little piece of property that we have at Misty Valley area.
5 acres.
Yeah, it's more of a floodway kind of, and I think that that's hard to put a park in there for kids, and it's probably not a lot. Is it 5 acres? I thought it was less than that.
There's 2 parcels. thought it was about 5 acres.
Okay.
There's a creek that runs down the west side and sewer that meanders across it. It's generally low.
Yeah.
Don't believe it's actually in the floodplain that stops at the culvert. But it is a very soft and low area that would see flooding.
My only concern, it's not in an open area, so it's well lit, people can see it.
You'd have to park on the street and walk down
Yeah,
a few hundred feet to actually get to the open area.
what we could potentially do, because I think we owe it to it. People want to walk to a place to enjoy a park or to sit there and walk a track and I think we got to do some of that. This side of the world, if you will, has filled up and we're running over.
Can I interject something?
hmm?
real quick? I spoke with Blue Cross Blue Shield several times with the GML conferences and everything. If we got the land, they're willing to put up the money to build for greenways and to build a park. I brought this up in previous meetings.
I remember that.
And we didn't receive the grant.
We made it to the final.
We-
So if we can,
We were shortlisted and unfortunately didn't get it. We'll keep applying, keep asking.
But did we have a grant writer?
No.
We did not. We did it. Christina did it. But Final Three, so hopefully by year 3, we would be number 1.
we need to do it again.
Yeah, we definitely need to do that. But
I think
anyway,
you done an excellent
that's my
job.
one of my top 2 projects. IT, I mean, we're lacking in IT. And I feel like we need to get that to the professional hands to continue the process versus bringing it in-house. I mean, I think this outlook that I'm going through it's terrible. And I'm hoping that we can soon fix that.
One of the projects up for bid is migrating outlet. So,
Okay,
but those conversations are occurring.
yeah, okay.
Can I ask a quick question about that? Is the question for that to go away from an Exchange server and go to something like a 365, so you wouldn't have to worry about it? Okay.
Hosted 365 cloud-based system.
Okay.
But that's what we're trying to do.
So I won't have to call every month to get my password reset. I cannot reset my password.
Nobody does Exchange.
I know you guys can do it, but for my house, I cannot do it. And I've got 365. I've got the latest Windows and I'm not sure what the disconnect is, but,
If you are paying often enough, they'll just make it so your password expires.
Tom just automatically resets it. Airports. So I have talked about airports for years because
You're gonna buy the first condo, right?
I will buy the first condo if you can open it up and I have a great view. But I think we mentioned this in a prior meeting about we've got to do something. There's got to be some funds out there, grants to get money. Number one, safety is number one concern. If you don't have a safe airport, people laugh because I said, I'll take a trencher out there and trench the ditch. It doesn't meet Tennessee Aeronautical, I guess, or whoever inspects that, but you can get an electrician out there. I don't know if I have to be an official certified trencher, but there's things that we really got to do. I know we're getting the computer system updated, the weather system.
The lights are moving along.
The
We're
light.
putting the taxiway
Yep.
out for bid here shortly. And to your point, historically, we relied on 95.5 grant funding
We
for
have.
all maintenance activities. Basically means we did one project every 3 or 4 years. I mean, we're at year 2 on our trees. It'll be 3 before we're done. And so now that the budgets from last year and the year before, you've given us some capital money, and that's what's paying for those safety improvements that we're making. Unfortunately, we're in a real big hole with $100,000 a year instead of a couple million.
So, like I said before, it is an enterprise fund, but there has got to be some way we can help the airport out. If we're not going to get profitable, and I've said this before, and so don't take this wrong, it'd be a nice condo place. Somebody will buy it. I get that. But we don't want that to happen to our city because it is an attraction. We used to do a lot of things like the fly-ins, the breakfast on Saturday mornings. We used to go to it. We'd have auction and they would auction off stuff for, the kids, for Christmas presents, for the unprivileged kids. And
And Ryan's working with Christina to bring some of that back. It'll be springtime, I think.
Spring's the first thing that we're looking at.
Right.
So I think we just got to make sure that we're well communicated on stuff like that because, you know, under prior management, I made the comment, we need to take a pressure washer and wash the sign. I did not realize how bad that sign looked. And we should never let our signs get like that. We don't do it here at the city hall. So we need to make sure that that sparkles. And I
It's gonna
think,
be pulled out by TDOT too. So I'll be asking for the money to replace it.
now, will they not pay some of that?
They claim to have already done so.
Okay. Well, that would come out of city funds versus enterprise funds?
Typically, it would come out of the enterprise. Unless, we can talk to the auditors and see if there's an out for city property, and I would be surprised.
When I do the research for you, Commissioner Lamb, I'll ask them. I'll ask them as well.
Because I think in 10 years, we need to have a way to purchase property on both sides of the freeway or the airport and make those hangars to be profitable. I mean, it could really repay itself.
We could fill probably 40 hangars based on market demand right now. If we had them, I think you would,
We have 62 people on a waiting list right now.
62. So,
So, I mean, if you don't expand, you can't make money. And we got to find a way to do that.
I agree. Hangars are running 2.5 a piece right now. So the last estimate I saw. That's still.
Well, depending upon the size,
Right. That was average size.
that is probably a box hanger,
It was.
which is larger than normal. You could do T hangers, which is what we really need immediately.
Yeah. So things like that, we really need to have on a project grid for the future. Salaries, I know you and I've had many
We do every year.
discussions about
We have
this.
it every year. I look forward to it.
I believe in paying employees what they're worth. And last year, you and I had this conversation. I felt like some of the public works people did not get where they should be, so we could retain them properly. And I hear that we lose people because of stuff like that as well. And I think we really need to get where we're over the salary gap and pay above that. And I'm for the retention plan. I'd have to go back and look at the actual, what you proposed again. I think I like that. I would change the years around a little bit, but we can have that discussion as well. I think that so much money, and I'll say a police officer, if we send a police officer to the academy and we don't keep them, or we go through all the training and we don't keep them, we're just losing money and it's walking right out the door. Now, the good thing about the police department, we've got a lot of tenure people there. They continue to stay with us. And I think it's well worth us having an incentive retention fund for that. And that goes for Public Works and for the rest of the team. I think I've just about cleared all my list off. Yep, that's good.
Mayor.
Let me start with the airport. I've flown into this airport for 30 plus years. I've seen what's happened over the last 15. Over the last 15 years, this airport has been more poorly managed than any airport I have flown into in the United States, and I fly all over the country. I have been very verbal about my feelings about how poorly managed this airport's been. I met with your predecessor. We discussed it 5 years ago. That got absolutely nowhere. There are simple things that we are doing now and that we can do to bring business into this airport. Basically, we have just told people that we're not interested in them coming to our airport. Your airport is your economic engine. In any community, it is your economic engine. I work for the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association out of Frederick, Maryland, Washington, D.C. I understand this all too well. Your airport is what makes your community money. We are the only city outside of Chattanooga that in Hamilton County that has an airport. We're unbelievably blessed in that regard. The economic impact of the Chattanooga airport is almost $1 billion. If you look at the airports within a 50-mile radius of Chattanooga, Collegedale ranks dead last. Our economic impact is a joke. $3.3 million. That's a joke. At a minimum, this airport ought to be pushing 30 million. These are people that you bring to your community, you're putting in your hotels, you're getting tax revenue, they're buying meals at your restaurants, they're buying gas at your gas stations, they're renting cars at the airport. They're doing these things that other airports do that we've not done. I do believe that we have the right manager in place. I think he's doing a great job. But one of the things that we've got to change is closing the airport at 2:30 on a Saturday and Sunday. I fly on Saturdays. Well, I fly throughout the week for business. On the weekends, I go places. When you close your airport at 2:30, nobody's going to come to your airport. That's ridiculous. You at a minimum ought to be open until 6 o'clock, minimum. Because if you close at 2:30, they say, why would I go to Collegedale? Because by the time we go get some lunch, we come back, the place is closed. I'm not going, I'll go to Chattanooga instead. And we've done this for so long that word has gotten out. I think we need to refurbish the management. We need to put a sign up that says under new leadership or management. We've got to stop closing this airport at 2:30. We're losing fuel cells. We're losing business all the way around. There is a new Collegedale Pilots Association meeting this Saturday, 9 o'clock to 11:30. This is a new group of pilots and it's free. We're opening it to all pilots in the community to help create a sense of community. I remember 20 years ago, this airport was buzzing. I was a tenant here. It was buzzing with activity, and now it's a ghost town. It's getting better. Ryan's doing a great job, but this Pilots Association is a step in the right direction of creating a sense of community at our airport. This Thursday at noon, I have a meeting, and I would encourage you to come join me. I talked to him a little bit ago, Steve Howell, with Congressman Fleischman's office. I've had discussions with Congressman Fleischman about trying federal money, what's involved in getting federal money for our airport, because as my distinguished colleagues have said, this airport is in trouble. We have neglected this airport. We have abused this airport. We have simply not fixed broken things. We had 2 plane crashes this past spring because we didn't have a weather station. That's a safety issue. And those sorts of things have got to be fixed. Our precision approach lights to guide people in, those haven't worked, I don't know, 10, 11 years. And so we've got to make an investment in this city asset. This is a gem. This is a great airport. There's nothing wrong with this airport other than it's got a bunch of broken stuff. And it's been under very poor management. So Steve Howell will be here this Thursday. Congressman Fleischman wants to come here on February 20th at 10 a.m. to tour the airport. So we need to give him the grand tour. Also, he would like to speak at the commission meeting that night. So that's all I've got to say about the airport. As you and I have talked about, second item I'd like to discuss is additional parking for the Commons. We had a great event yesterday with Chinese New Year, big crowd. I was shocked at the crowd. It was a huge crowd, but the community just loves the Commons, and parking was at an absolute premium yesterday, as it is with every event. So I would like to see us start putting some pencil to paper and begin prepping the land that we have for additional parking.
It's on me, by the way.
I understand.
haven't
I
got the
understand.
plans done.
You and I've talked about that.
That is on me. In the original plan,
Can I tell you to stay home tomorrow?
in the original plan for the two of you that weren't on the commission at the time was to get it permitted and then pull a bond to pay for construction. What we were planning to do, and we have an envelope level estimate right now of about 800,000 for the project. Once we get it designed out and have quantity take off, that number will tighten up some.
Okay.
Well, let's add 100 more thousand to that bond and put it on the airport. I'm on the bond committee, remember? I'm sorry.
I work at the consensus direction of the commission.
Can we make a motion? But we do seriously need money invested in the airport. We're just way, way behind. So parking lot, next item I have, third item is the Greenway expansion. Those of us on the other side of White Oak Mountain, we need green space. We need places for kids to play. We need places for families to walk. And I think the airport is a great place to put a park. We own a lot of land out there, and it is very, very popular in other airports that I travel to. So, but we do need a greenway expansion, definitely. Last item I have is the railroad cleanup. I'm pleased to see that Norfolk Southern appears to be ahead of schedule. All the rail cars are gone. The road beds are in place for the cranes and the heavy equipment. It does look like more equipment has arrived this afternoon, and they seem to be staging to move the locomotives in the very near future. So I think all that the equipment is going to be out of our way. I do want to reiterate that Norfolk Southern has agreed to reimburse us on road repairs. So if we have roads that need to be repaved, we've had a lot of damage because of that heavy equipment that's been brought in on semis. So, and they're agreeing to pay for it, and I think we need to take advantage of it.
Did they include the portion of the greenway that was damaged too?
Yes, they will pay for that. So what they've said is put everything back the way it was, and we will reimburse you. But they've said, don't come to us and ask us to get multiple bids. Make it simple on yourself. Go ahead and get the work done with a contractor of your choice, and we will reimburse you fully.
We'll get that bid back together then.
Okay, let's do it.
You need it in writing?
And
I want it in writing.
I'm gonna send the email in the morning.
No, they're good. They're good about writing checks.
Yeah,
yeah.
they
We're
are.
gonna get it on the backside. So.
Was there any equipment at the airport? No, just kidding.
I think it started at the airport. I don't think so.
All that
Yeah,
magically.
it wiped out our pump tracks, it wiped out our park.
I think
We
the
rebuilt all that too.
economic center down there is damaged. Maybe we should rebuild it.
I think we did need to be proactive, extremely proactive.
But that's my complete list.
Okay, outstanding. Thank you. So we'll start with Chief Sapp.
I don't really have anything to report, but I did want to touch on Commissioner Lamb. I did, about a year or so ago, I did send one of my supervisors to grant writing courses and some classes and training. And he's been doing a great job to keep an eye out and try to apply for as much as we can. We've gotten a $11,000 grant for some DUI enforcement equipment. We've gotten a little bit of K-9 grant money. We're working with the state right now through their violent crime grant. Looks like we're hoping to get about $93,000 out of that grant that can go towards equipment, training needs, et cetera. So we've already done the first process of that. We're moving into the second phase. So nothing really to report, but just wanted to touch on it. That is something that I am trying to do more of to help ease off some budget or big ticket items. And, you know, if there's grant money out there that we can use, then I'm certainly looking for it.
Do you keep him so busy that he can't write some grants for us?
Yeah, pretty busy with his other responsibilities.
I was afraid you'd say that.
Just wanted to publicly thank some people. Could not have done this whole painting project. It was an enormous undertaking with office furniture, temporary office relocation. It was a huge deal. Christy Wheeler played an important part. A lot of times she does so much behind the scenes that a lot of times people don't know all what she does, whether figuring out pictures to take down or put back up, where to put them back up. Josh Booth was really instrumental as well. Stephen Ledbetter, our custodian, just working tirelessly, just moving stuff and shampooing carpets and just done a great job. John Gamble, Michelle, and Rachel, to name a few, but so many other staff too. Just, it was a real group effort, and so thankful for just the results. I'm real pleased with how it worked out. So
Looks good.
Really does, looks great.
that was it.
Natalie, anything?
I do have a little bit of an announcement.
Okay.
She's leaving.
Tell you guys, I accepted a position at the UTC library, and my last day is gonna be February 16th.
We
So I'm
wish you
really-
luck, but hate that you're leaving.
Yeah,
I am
sad
She's
to
been
leave
so good.
because this is a great community to work in and a great library to work in. And I just came up with an opportunity I couldn't pass down, so. Yeah, but LS&S is already working on looking for a replacement, so they're on top of it. And I gave my supervisor your number in case she needs to coordinate anything.
That'd be great.
We're gonna miss you.
And congratulations.
Yes.
We're gonna miss you.
Parks and Rec, we've been busy trying to get some programs off and going. We got our first ever Galentine's Day event. It's actually Galentine's Disco. We've had to change things up a little bit, but it's gonna be fun. Having the ladies bring out their roller skates, and we're gonna do a pop-up roller rink. We got some great vendors that are gonna be there offering things as well. So it should be fun for all the gals to come out and spend some time together. You're gonna be out there on skates, right? You're gonna be out there on skates?
Of course.
Yeah. I'll be out there.
No, you need to make sure Dolly Philman knows.
Okay.
You don't know her. She used to organize the skating rink in town for activities out here for the college kids and the teenagers.
I will have to look that up, for sure. We've got, Shamrock in the Park is gonna come back for, St. Patrick's Day. So if anybody is wanting to volunteer for painting rocks, that would be greatly appreciated. Usually our seniors do that, but we've been keeping them pretty active, so, we're opening up for other volunteers. And of course, just to remind everybody that in order for us to put on these programs, if we don't have volunteers, we can't continue to make them the big success that they can be. We've had a lot of feedback about like our Jedi training, the wizard school. We'd love to be able to offer that to more kids. We'd love to be able to offer it multiple dates. But right now, with having just me and my one staff member, we're really having to rely heavily on volunteers. So if you guys can help us with spreading that word, but other than that, we're just having fun and making things happen.
Marilyn, on the district meeting, were you talking about the one they typically have in December?
Mhm.
They had it, it was online. Yeah, they did an online only version, and you can still go back. It was all about the return relief, the Restore Return Relief campaign. Was that-
Must have missed it.
But it's-
Wasn't that exciting, was it?
It was, and you, if you want to watch it, you can go
No,
back. and see
I
what
won't
it's
do
like.
that.
It's had commercials this year.
It was awful. You didn't.
Yeah.
They owe me for my hour.
Yes, I just texted Anthony and he said that is the only one they've had other than the one that they have the Monday of the TML conference this year.
Okay.
And the TML conference is March 13th and 14th. So, in Nashville, yes. And I'm meeting, I'm glad you said that. Wayne, I had talked to Wayne about this also. I'm meeting with Gracie White with
Okay.
Fleischman's office. And he had asked me to mention about the airport too, but now that I can report, you all are going to talk. That's wonderful.
I met with her before, a couple weeks ago, and I mentioned the same thing.
Yeah, Gracie will be with Steve,
Okay.
as I understand it.
Works for Steve.
Yes.
She just got married.
Yeah. She's pretty sharp. The 113th session has started with the Tennessee General Assembly. They started on January the 10th. Typically, they have until like February the 10th to file their bills. This year, they've moved it up to January 31st. So bills are coming in a big hurry. The two main ones that we're following this year, of course, is the TML's Restore Return Relief with the state share sales tax and the single article cap, trying to get more monies back to the cities. I think in the last, not this past fiscal year, but 21-22, Clarksville to get over 200,000 if they had had this received. I'm on the phone quite a bit with Tom Griscom and Anthony Haynes and some other city managers throughout the state of Tennessee, trying to find out, what else is happening with TML efforts and what can we do to help push this. So that's the big one we're following. And then the other one we're very concerned about, we're seeing some annexation bills pop up. And they're all caption bills. They're opening up that TCA code. And so we're keeping an eye on that. But Watson has introduced one that we have a lot of concern about. And I'll keep you all updated on that. So if you have any questions, and we'll keep watching.
It's just business as usual for me. Everything's going good.
You else have anything?
I just want to remind everybody of Thursday at 6 PM, the community town hall, that our county commissioner is going to be holding. And I don't know how many,
RSVP on the link. I don't know that it's required.
um,
See that?
Come on, it's coming.
Albert said he would like to include people to RSVP just to make sure they have any seats.
seats, yeah.
That's the only reason.
And I've received something, some of the rest of you may have received,
Mhm.
Friends of Hamilton alert. Any of you guys gotten that?
No.
I read them every time they post.
This is the first one I'd received, but I think you can expect some of them to be at this town hall meeting because they're going after our county commissioner.
They are, they
Have you seen it?
historically did not, like my predecessor,
You want to forward that?
or the city or any elected representative or anyone. I will say after their FOIA request for all the addresses of every parent in Hampton County, it appears that their following has strongly decreased. And they're speaking to the choir a lot, but they will be at the meeting. They've indicated they'll be there and be vocal.
But it has a lot to do with annexation and property rights.
Yes, they're strong for de-annexation. Anything else? If that's it, we'll adjourn.
Okay, thank you.
RSVP. Is that fine to come?